Good morning. Wait until later. Let's hope you like it. Good morning to you. You know, I couldn't help walking up the steps here and to this school and looking at this beautiful campus and location, not to appreciate the extraordinary collaboration between business and academia. And I think the Haas family deserves a lot of credit for their wisdom and generosity, but their wisdom in searching for excellence in education of young businessmen and women who will, in fact, later on return so many benefits to all of business and to our nation. Indeed, welcome to all of you. I hope this will be a transformational experience, your experience here at this extraordinary Haas School. And by transformational experience, I mean the ability to elevate your thinking capacity and later your performance capacity to a different level. So that's what I hope you will be able to accomplish during the next either year or 2 years that you have here at the Haas School. Now, this academic setting reminds me of a story that took place, or I kept hearing it, during my undergraduate days. Apparently, the saga goes, one beautiful May morning at the end of the school year, one brash but rather worried young man went to see his most distinguished teacher. He was a teacher in a graduate nuclear physics course. Professor Einstein, he said, we hear that the exam you'll give this year is exactly the same as the one you gave last year. Aren't you afraid that we'll call friends, teachers at other university and get help? In other words, aren't you afraid we're going to cheat on you? Apparently, Einstein looked at the young man over his famous horn-rimmed glasses and said, well, you're quite right. He says, the exam we'll give this year is exactly the same as the exam we gave last year. But the answer this year, they will be different. You'll find that change and the imperative need for change is, in fact, a constant. So what changes are taking place which will seriously impact business as well as our personal lives? What is the reason why, in fact, you're in this extraordinary auditorium here in this room? What new tool must you acquire to become effective leaders in the 21st century? I think you'll find that after graduation, the business world will become even more challenging, even more competitive, too often ruthlessly ferocious, more demanding of you physically, intellectually, emotionally. If you happen to be an American, or if you want to work in America, you'll soon find that this nation is facing the biggest challenge to its economic leadership in over 100 years. Tom Friedman is right. The world is flat. No single nation is likely to secure a permanent competitive advantage in the new global economy. The playing field has been leveled permanently. For the first time in America's history, this nation will face not just one, but two formidable competitors. India and China will pose extraordinary challenges. Two powerful economies becoming much larger than ours, capable of producing more quality products at significant lower prices on a sustained basis. Please reflect on this. Two competitors with the capacity to produce more quality products at much lower prices for decades to come. There's an even more frightening possibility. China and India appear not to be content in competing for only the low-end manufacturing business. They want to dominate the future high-end value-added markets as well. And their qualifications are impressive. They have hunger. They have ambition. They have been in our continuing programs to provide superb education to youth entering the workforce by the dozens of millions every year. They are fully committed to internet technology. Indeed, theirs is a powerful proposition. But while their ultimate success is not certain nor smoothly achieved, it is foolhardy and certainly unwise for America to assume otherwise. So what's America's response going to be? How must America change? What must business leaders in this country do differently? As you walk through tomorrow's doors, you will also find that the rules which have brought success to leaders for generations no longer apply. But do we know why these golden business rules are no longer relevant? What changes, what new forces are now at work? Do we know the new rules, the new principles which can bring enduring success? And there's more. In the foreseeable future, all of us will have to live and work and succeed in a world full of insecurity and risk. Acts of terror are not diminishing, they are intensifying. It's true of the war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in downtown Cairo, in downtown London. So what must nations do to change all that? Importantly for us, what must business people do beyond just learning to live with insecurity and risk? Can business leaders help to change this disastrous, destructive trend and help move the world towards the good? Today, as I look at the world of business, I see it changing rather dramatically. In fact, the challenges for American business are becoming immense. Tom Friedman echoes the need for change and personal transformation. In his recent book, The World is Flat, which I commend to you most highly, Friedman says, the hallmark of a truly successful organization is the willingness to abandon what made it successful and, if necessary, to start fresh, end quote. Frankly, that applies doubly to each and every one of us personally. So then, what does it take to win with consistency? What must the leader be able to see, to do in tomorrow's world? Where do we find the source of success in business achievement and in personal fulfillment? For the rest of the presentation, I intend to provide you with a landscape, an architecture, for finding the tools you need, the compass you must have to navigate through these challenging and ferociously competitive decades ahead. A critical caveat. The way to achievement and happiness doesn't come with a silver bullet, unfortunately, or easy advice or solutions. Instead, I will be talking to you about a journey of discovery, about the promise of a lifetime of learning, about a new set of rules and principles, and the imperative that we personally acquire the skill and the willingness to change. First, I'll endeavor to provide some constructive context and understanding of the business world around us, the major forces which will endure in the decades ahead. In fact, those forces which will be relevant to you for most of your business lives. Second, I'll identify 4 fundamental guiding principles at the heart of successful business leadership. In these fine schools, you'll learn ample analytical tools, tactics, techniques, and they will serve you well. They are necessary, but simply not sufficient. You must also gain a new set of guiding principles for the new world you are facing. And finally, I want to address this critical underlying issue we all face and we all must face in the days ahead. Even if we're fortunate enough to see the light, to grasp the rules of success in business and personal life, do we as human beings also have the capacity to change, to adapt to this difficult, challenging, competitive, demanding, but also exciting and exhilarating world ahead? I will conclude with a resounding affirmative answer. So let me start with the enduring context of your business life. 3 fundamental enduring forces which are the legacy of the last century and shape the business landscape of the first half of this 21st century. The first powerful force is the concept of free enterprise. Free enterprise will continue as the value creation engine for the 21st century. While many of you really think and know that the magic of free enterprise is rather obvious, its foundation underpinnings deserve a bit of exploration. First, I would like to draw a distinction between free enterprise and capitalism. And as you will note, the difference is more than mere semantics. Capitalism deserves enormous credit. With the start of the Industrial Revolution, capital cash became what I call the choke point, the major difference between winning companies and winning nations and the have-nots. Money capital became the great economic discriminator. But towards the end of the 20th century, Lenin's and Marx's predictions about the death of capitalism were proven to be right, but for totally different reasons. Capital became increasingly ubiquitous and increasingly cheap. Money no longer has the power to separate winners from losers. The new force, the new power to success and economic wealth is free enterprise. And I define free enterprise as the free movement of capital and other resources in the most efficient and effective way to produce values and thus wealth. In a dramatically revolutionary way, technology has brought about the possibility for any individual anywhere in the world to connect with a free enterprise system. And this is the definition of globalization in the 21st century business. There's one critical caveat, however. Free enterprise demands a level playing field for all competitors. With the scandals that you know too well, the Enrons and Tycos and WorldCom and Arthur Andersen, Adelphia, right in our own backyard with Parliament in Italy, with still so much corruption going on in Eastern Europe, in Latin America and Asia, we have lots of practical, ethical, and moral issues to settle. Media, NGOs, and governments will be, in fact, critical players in the free enterprise process. For governments in particular, that will be the vital role of referees and enforcers, but not participants in the game of business. As participants, governments usually mess up. Protectionism is a good example of what governments should not do. Protectionism has consistently been associated with failure for both companies and nations. It is simply bad medicine. Despite all of these challenges, I believe that global free enterprise will adjust, will change, will improve, and will thrive. But governments, NGOs, and media must be vigilant in keeping that playing field level. The second force is the greatest business revolution, along with the development of the internet in the last 50 years. And you haven't read a thing about it. It's the paradigm shift from a global economy driven by excess demand to a global economy defined by excess supply. Until now, all of us businessmen and women operate in an excess demand world. The history of modern excess demand era starts with the conclusion of the Second World War right here in the United States. In the late 40s and throughout much of the latter part of the 20th century, the demand for products and services far exceeded their supply. So during a 50-year period, those with the capital to produce and distribute had an unparalleled advantage. This state of excess demand cascaded down from the US to Europe and then to the rest of the developed world. And the business rule most business people, academics, and business writers learned and talked about were the excess demand ways of doing business, the excess demand ways to success. But then in the 1990s, a powerful revolution began to take place. Quietly, in industry after industry, excess supply became the new reality. And the process of transformation has continued throughout the 21st century, and it will. By now, most businesses, most industries in the developed world are in a state of excess supply. You might ask what brought about this move from excess demand to excess supply, and the answer is simple. The barriers to entry into any profitable business in the developed world have been, by and large, eradicated. Capital, as we discussed, is now cheap and ubiquitous. Raw materials from agriculture to metallurgy or their equivalent substitutes are all in excess supply. Oil and water are the major exceptions, and oil is only artificially in short supply. Manufacturing production is now clearly in an overcapacity condition. Examples abound. Think about the car industry, hotels, airlines, computers. There's more than we need of nearly everything. Technological innovations which provided years of insulation from competition are no longer able to play that protective role for any length of time. All that thanks to the latest technological capabilities. And the internet is simply turbocharging that trend. Human capital, once scarce, is also in oversupply. Witness the phenomena of India, China, Eastern Europe. Importantly, the net result is commoditization.